There are some materials we see every day that we just totally take for granted. Today, we're going to talk about one of the biggest rubber. I mean, it's everywhere in our tires, our shoes, it's even in the operating room. But the story of how it got there? Oh, it's this wild ride of chemistry, history, and a central mystery that's, well, surprisingly elastic. Okay, so check this out. It all starts with a basketball from 1955. Yeah, 1955. It's made from natural rubber, the stuff that's tapped from trees. And get this, it's almost 70 years old and it still bounces perfectly. This isn't just some cool old piece of sports gear, it's like a physical link to a material that just seems to defy time. And believe it or not, this ball holds the key to our whole story.
And that right there brings us to the main puzzle. See, when scientists figured out how to make synthetic rubber from petroleum, everybody just assumed, well, that's it for rubber trees. It just made sense, right? But here's the crazy part. Today, we're making more natural rubber and more synthetic rubber than ever before. The big replacement that seemed so obvious, it just never happened. So what's going on? To figure that out, we gotta go way back.
All right, so to solve this thing, we need to play detective a bit. We've got to gather some clues from the past. And our journey, it kicks off thousands of years ago deep in the Amazon rainforest. And let me tell you, it's going to take us to a place of just unbelievable wealth, but also unimaginable horror. So, for literally thousands of years, rubber was just this kind of weird Aztec curiosity. They would do things like dip their feet right into liquid latex to make these custom fit, waterproof shoes. Pretty clever, right? But then, bam, the late 19th century hits and this stuff becomes liquid gold. Brazil had the whole world in a stranglehold, a total monopoly. The city of Manaus got so ridiculously rich that these rubber barons built this absolutely stunning opera house right in the middle of the jungle. They even paved the streets with rubber just so their fancy carriages would be quieter. Think about that. But all that glamour, it had a really, really dark side, a horrific one. That rubber boom was built on the backs of enslaved and brutalized indigenous people in the Amazon. I mean, entire tribes were just wiped out to meet rubber quotas. So that beautiful jungle opera house, it was, quite literally, built with blood. Okay, so what's so wild is that for all this history, raw rubber was basically useless. I mean, it was just a sticky goo when it got hot, and it would turn brittle and crack when it got cold. So, to really get why it's so important to us now, we've got to dive into the chemistry, and it all comes down to a single world-changing accident. So, if you could zoom way, way in, down to the molecular level, you'd see that natural rubber is made of these long, super tangled up polymer chains. The name is polyisoprene. And honestly, the best way to picture it is like a bowl of cooked spaghetti. When you stretch a rubber band, you're really just pulling all those spaghetti strands straight. And when you let go, boing, they all spring right back into that jumbled mess. That's elasticity, right there. But here's the thing. Those spaghetti chains by themselves, they're a problem. Raw rubber is just way too unstable. It melts, it cracks, it just couldn't handle temperature changes at all. That made it pretty much useless for, well, almost anything. It desperately needed a fix. And that fix came, totally by accident, in 1839 from a guy named Charles Goodyear. The story goes he accidentally dropped this mix of rubber and sulfur onto a hot stove. And that heat, it caused the sulfur atoms to create these little bridges or crosslinks between all those spaghetti polymer chains. Think of it like adding rungs to a ladder. It stops the sides from just sliding apart. That process, which he called vulcanization, is what created the stable, strong, and incredibly elastic material that we use for everything today. So once vulcanization was discovered, rubber became this absolutely essential industrial material. But its biggest challenge was still on the horizon. A global war was about to break out, and it would cut off the world's supply, forcing humanity to basically invent a competitor out of thin air. So World War II breaks out. Japan moves fast, conquering Southeast Asia, and just like that, they controlled a staggering 90% of the world's rubber supply. 90%. For the Allies, this was an absolute catastrophe. I mean, think about it. A single tank needed half a ton of rubber. A battleship, 75 tons. Without rubber, the entire war effort would literally just grind to a halt. The response to this crisis, it's honestly one of the greatest industrial feats in history. The US launched this massive crash program to create synthetic rubber using petroleum. And in just 4 years, production went from pretty much zero to over 800,000 tons. Now, it wasn't perfect stuff, but you know what? It was good enough to help win the war. And this brings us right back to where we started, to our central mystery.
After the war, you've got this huge, brand new synthetic rubber industry. Everyone, and I mean everyone, just assumed the cheaper lab-made version would just push the old tree tap stuff out of the picture. But it didn't. And the reason why it didn't, well, that's the key to this whole thing.
Okay, so here's the big reveal. The crucial point is that they aren't actually direct competitors. They're more like specialists. Natural rubber is incredible at resisting heat and what's called fatigue. That's just the breakdown from being stressed over and over again. Synthetic rubber, on the other hand, is way better at standing up to things like chemicals and oils. They each have a specific job that they are perfect for.
And the reason why is it's just fascinating. It comes down to this. The rubber tree, over millions of years of evolution, basically turned itself into a perfect little factory. The polymer chains it makes, that polyisoprene we talked about, are unbelievably uniform and consistent in their structure. Our labs are amazing, don't get me wrong, but trying to perfectly copy that natural perfection, it turns out to be incredibly difficult. And you can really see where that natural perfection makes all the difference. Think about aircraft tires. They have to handle insane amounts of heat and pressure when a plane lands. Only natural rubber can do that job. Or heavy truck tires. They're constantly flexing under these huge loads. If they were made from synthetic rubber, they'd overheat and fail. And for surgeons, the feel, the sensitivity, and the tear resistance of natural latex gloves are, and this is no exaggeration, literally life-saving.
So the big takeaway here is actually pretty powerful. We have this idea that progress always means the new thing completely replaces the old one, right? But the story of rubber shows us something different. It shows that sometimes innovation is just about giving us more specialized tools for our toolbox. We didn't get rid of natural rubber, we just created a partner for it. And now we have more options than ever.
So, in the end, that simple story of new replaces old, it just wasn't true. The real truth had to stretch to make room for a more complicated reality where both of these materials had a crucial role to play. Which just goes to show you, some truths really are as elastic as the materials that teach them.
And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. Rubber is just one example of this. So what other old technologies are out there? What materials, what ideas from the past do we kind of just assume are obsolete but are actually quietly irreplaceable, still doing a job that nothing else can? It's a really fascinating question to think about, isn't it?